In this video, we are going to learn how to read a dial vernier caliper. So the dial vernier caliper is very similar to a regular vernier caliper, but it's a little bit easier to read because it has a dial. This one doesn't. So this one here, you have to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, or at least add fractions. So we're going to use this one here for now. We'll learn to use the other one in a different segment or a different video. So just a couple of items here. So the first thing is just the components of the caliper. This front part right here, these are the outside, the outside jaws, which measure the outside diameter of something. These right here are the inside diameter jaws. And then the vernier caliper also has the capability of measuring depth, which is this piece right down here. So those are the three measurements that it can take. It can measure outside, inside, and depth as far as the measurement goes. So if I take this nut right here, and we can measure the outside diameter of the nut, or the outside part of the nut. We can also measure the inside of the nut by putting the inside jaws inside there. We can take that measurement, and then we can also measure the depth by extending out this piece on the bottom, and then putting it inside there, and then sliding the vernier caliper down onto the nut. And this right here is how deep that nut is, and here's our measurement. So let's see how this works, or how to read the dial caliper to make a measurement. We're going to take a measurement with the dial caliper now, and before we take that measurement, we need to make sure it's calibrated. So make sure your jaws are nice and clean and that they're closed tight. And if they are closed, then that needle should be straight in line with the zero. Sometimes your bezel can be off a little bit, and so if it is, what you need to do is bring that bezel around till the needle and the zero line up, and then lock it in place with this lock nut right down here at the bottom, the lock screw. This other lock screw up here is to lock the jaws once we make our measurement, so that we can take our measurement without messing up our reading. Now as you open up the dial caliper, if you notice, every time this needle makes one complete revolution, it comes up to 1/100th of an inch. And then if you have 10 1/100ths of an inch, you have 1 inch. So that would be 1 inch right there. So that's 1 inch. And then depending on how big your caliper is, it can measure up to, this one here can measure up to 6 inches. So when you're taking your measurement, the first thing you want to do is you want to look and see how much of an inch you have actually measured. So if you're measuring an object that is more than an inch, then your measurement will be over here. So your first number will be a 1 because it's over an inch. If we're measuring something that's under an inch, our first number will be a 0, and then we'll have a point, whatever it is. So let's take a measurement and see how it works. I'm going to use this this valve stem for an example. So we'll open it up and we'll take a measurement on the valve stem. While I'm holding a little bit of pressure on that, I'm going to lock my jaws in place, and then I can remove the valve stem from the caliper. Now I've got my reading set. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the main scale right here. And if you notice, I've got 1, 2, and the 3 is still a little partially covered. So my reading is going to be 0.2. So I would write that down if I'm going to write it down to make my measurement. So that'd be 0.2. To get the rest of my reading, I have to look at the dial. So if you look at the dial, comes all the way around here to 70. So the next number would be a 7. And then I would count how many 1/1000ths of an inch it is from there. So that's 71, 2, 3, looks like 74. So it'd be 274 thousandths of an inch is what I've got measured on that valve stem. Now, remembering that, if we take a digital micrometer and we check our measurement, and we'll see how close we are. So with this digital micrometer, I've got it down to 0, and I'm going to open this up. And if I hold my micrometer this way, then I hold my valve stem this way, I can actually take a lot better reading, and it's a lot more secure. So there I've got my reading. So I move the valve stem out and look at the reading. Whoops, if I hadn't bumped it with my finger, it's 274. 274. So that's how you use a Vernier dial caliper. The Vernier dial caliper is not as accurate as a micrometer, but it is really handy for taking quick measurements. I use a Vernier caliper all the time. In fact, this is my personal caliper, and I've got several. This is another Vernier caliper that I have, and this one actually measures 1/1000 or 100,000ths of an inch. So every time the needle goes around one full revolution like this, if you notice right down here, I'm at 2 instead of 1, because this one is geared so that every 180 degrees is 100 thousandths. So that, and then we bring it down to another 180 degrees, another 100 thousandths. So this one would be, it measures the same way, but it's just a little different way of doing it. So hope this helps, and we'll see you in the next video.